Do not scroll if you believe in family. If the Fast and Furious franchise has 1 million fans, I'm one of them. If they have 1 fan, it's just me. And if they have no fans, I've died, because I will go to my grave loving all 10 plus of these movies. I wasn't able to see the first 3 movies in this franchise in theaters. I was too young. So this movie marks me seeing every single one since then in theaters on opening weekend. This one is usually lauded as the worst of the franchise, and I don't know if I disagree with that, but if this is Justin Lin's worst film, he has set the bar so much higher than most action filmmakers. Day 45 of 365 of the Ticket Stub Movie Club. Today's movie, Fast 4. I remember seeing this one as a young teen and being just so energized leaving the theater. This is exactly my kind of movie. It's a little mindless. They kind of turned into, we'll say, superhero movies after a while. And while this is probably the weakest of the franchise, I thought it would be fun to do a quick recap of the series, how we got through the first 3 movies to get to here, and then where this launches us as we see every single one of these in the rest of the Ticket Stub Movie Club. So for the uninitiated, Fast and Furious 1 is basically Point Break 2.0. Fast and Furious 2, or Too Fast, Too Furious, because they were really leaning into the early aughts naming scheme back then. That one's basically Fast and Furious 2.0, or Point Break 3.0. By the time we get to Tokyo Drift, we are now fully away from the naming scheme yet again, and trying to do a Last Samurai with drifting cars. This is probably one of my favorites and the coolest of the series. That catches us up to this movie. Fast and Furious, no number. I'm calling it 4 just so sequentially we know where we're at, but chronologically, this technically isn't the 4th movie either, because they've retconned Tokyo Drift to be happening way further along in the series. I'm not going to get lost in the weeds here. We're just going to talk about the one at hand. If this movie is essentially a soft reboot of the first movie, I guess that technically makes this Point Break 4.0, which does give them the technical 4 they needed, which makes me happy, but I don't know if that makes anyone that's not a Fast and Furious fan happy. However, I'd argue that this is less a Point Break remake of the first movie and more the Fast and Furious does Speed, not The Drug, the movie with Keanu Reeves. I wish they had more of those elements in the film. I honestly think that would pull this up a full grade level, and people would really remember it for the speed aspects, but they were too scared to ape that movie too much, and so instead it just kind of cuts through the middle of the water. That's okay though, because the end of this movie sets up the best of the franchise, Fast and Furious 5. Fast 5 is basically Ocean's Fast and Furious. That's why this one ends up being the best. It's the most grounded while still giving us all the over-the-topness the series is known for. And at this point, we're basically caught up to the MCU machine. So most of the movies from here are going to feel like MCU movies. Jason Momoa is basically playing the Joker in the most recent film. Not hating, I enjoyed the performance. It's just a little way past over the top at this point. Our next movie is called The Haunting / The Skeptic because it had 2 titles and probably only showed in that many theaters because I have 1 of 1,000 ticket stubs that were ever printed for this movie. I'll see you tomorrow. Here comes another fucking scooter, literally as soon as I start. Look at this guy. Boo this whore.